So I've been spending quite a bit of time with StarRupture lately, and I've got to say, this game really surprised me. When I first saw it pop up on Steam, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. The description mentioned first-person building, open-world exploration, and combat against alien hordes, which honestly sounded like it could go either way. But after diving in, I can tell you, this is one of those games that manages to blend several genres together in a way that actually works. Let me start by painting a picture of what you're getting into here. StarRupture drops you onto this mysterious alien planet, and right from the start, you can feel that something's different about this place. It's not just another survival game where you're punching trees and crafting wooden pickaxes. This planet is alive in a really unsettling way. The world around you is constantly changing, shaped by these recurring catastrophic events that the game calls cataclysms. I remember the first time I experienced one of these. I was just setting up my initial base, gathering some basic resources, and suddenly the entire landscape started shifting. The ground rumbled, structures that seemed permanent just moments ago began crumbling, and I had to scramble to protect what little I'd built. It was intense, and it immediately made me realize this wasn't going to be a leisurely building experience. The core gameplay loop revolves around three main pillars: exploration, industrial automation, and survival combat. You're essentially trying to establish a foothold on this hostile world while uncovering its secrets. What I really appreciate is how these elements don't feel tacked on or separate from each other. Everything flows together naturally. You explore to find resources and discover new areas. You build industrial systems to process those resources and expand your capabilities, and you fight to protect everything you've worked for. Let's talk about the exploration aspect first, because this is where StarRupture really shines in terms of atmosphere. The planet itself is gorgeous, but deadly. You've got these vast landscapes with alien flora, strange rock formations, and ruins that hint at something that happened here long before you arrived. The art style walks this interesting line between realistic and stylized. It's not going for photorealism, but it's not cartoony either. The lighting is particularly impressive, especially during different times of day or when those cataclysmic events start rolling in. I found myself just standing on cliff tops sometimes, watching the horizon as storm clouds gathered, or as the dual suns set in colors I've never seen in any other game. But don't let the pretty visuals fool you. This planet wants you dead. The environmental hazards are no joke. You've got extreme temperature fluctuations that you need to manage, toxic areas that require special equipment to traverse, and radiation zones that'll cook you if you're not prepared. The game does a good job of telegraphing these dangers, though. You can see heat shimmer in the distance, or notice the sickly glow of radioactive areas. It's not about cheap deaths, it's about preparation and respect for the environment. Now, the building and automation system is where things get really deep, and honestly, this is probably where I've spent most of my time. If you've ever played games like Factorio or Satisfactory, you'll feel at home here. But StarRupture adds its own twist by putting you in first person and making you deal with this ever-changing world. You start simple, setting up basic mining operations and smelters, but before long, you're designing complex production chains. I'm talking conveyor belts snaking across the landscape, automated refineries processing multiple resource types, power grids that need constant management, and logistics networks that would make an engineer weep with joy. What I love about the building system is how tactile it feels. Because you're in first person, you're not just clicking on a map from above. You're physically walking through your factory, placing machines, connecting pipes and belts, troubleshooting bottlenecks. There's something incredibly satisfying about building a massive industrial complex and then standing in the middle of it, watching everything work in harmony. The sound design really helps here too. You hear the hum of machinery, the clank of resources being processed, the whoosh of items flying down conveyor belts. It creates this industrial symphony that makes your base feel alive. The technology progression is well-paced. You unlock new buildings and capabilities through research, which requires you to process specific resources and complete certain milestones. Early on, you're working with basic materials like iron and copper, but as you push deeper into the tech tree, you start discovering exotic alien materials with unique properties. Each new technology tier opens up more possibilities, not just for production efficiency, but for survival and combat as well. Speaking of combat, this is probably the most action-oriented aspect of the game, and it's way more involved than I initially expected. Those alien creatures I mentioned, they're not just wandering mobs that you can ignore. They're aggressive, they hunt in packs, and they will absolutely tear through your defenses if you're not prepared. The enemy variety is impressive too. You've got small, fast creatures that swarm you in numbers, larger brutes that can soak up damage and smash through walls, flying enemies that harass you from above, and these really creepy subterranean types that burrow underground and pop up when you least expect it. The combat itself feels weighty and responsive. You've got a variety of weapons to choose from, starting with basic firearms, but eventually unlocking energy weapons, explosives, and even some really interesting alien tech weapons. The gunplay is solid, with good impact feedback and satisfying sound effects. But here's the thing. Combat in StarRupture isn't just about having good aim. You need to think tactically. Setting up defensive perimeters around your base is crucial. I'm talking automated turrets, walls, traps, the whole 9 yards. And even then, during major attack waves, you'll find yourself running around frantically, repairing damaged sections, redirecting power to critical defenses, and manually picking off the biggest threats. Those cataclysmic events I mentioned earlier, they don't just reshape the terrain, they also trigger massive enemy spawns. It creates these really tense moments where you're trying to keep your industrial systems running while simultaneously defending against waves of hostile creatures. The first few times this happened, I'll be honest, I lost significant chunks of my base. But each failure taught me something. And there's a real sense of accomplishment when you finally weather a major cataclysm with your infrastructure intact. One of the best features of StarRupture is the cooperative multiplayer. You can team up with up to 3 friends, and honestly, this is how I'd recommend experiencing the game if possible. Playing solo is absolutely viable and has its own appeal, especially if you like that zen-like focus of optimizing systems alone. But with friends, everything takes on a new dimension. You can divide responsibilities, with one person focusing on exploration and resource gathering, another on base defense, and others on expanding and optimizing production. The coordination required during those cataclysmic events when you're all scrambling to protect different sections of a sprawling base is genuinely thrilling. The game handles multiplayer pretty well too. Progress is shared, so everyone benefits from discoveries and tech unlocks. There's enough resources scattered around that you're not fighting over scraps, but you do need to coordinate your industrial planning to avoid inefficiencies. My group developed this whole system where we'd specialize in different production chains, which made everything run smoother, but also meant we relied on each other. It created these really cool emergent gameplay moments. Now, let's talk about the technical side and presentation. The graphics are genuinely impressive for what seems to be an indie or smaller studio production. The environments are detailed and varied, with different biomes that each have their own visual identity and hazards. The alien creatures are well designed, with animations that make them feel genuinely threatening. The UI is clean and functional, though it can feel a bit overwhelming at first with all the different menus for building, research, and inventory management. There's definitely a learning curve there. Performance-wise, I've had a mostly smooth experience. There are occasional frame drops during massive enemy attacks or when you've built an absolutely enormous factory, but nothing game-breaking. The developers seem to be actively updating and optimizing, which is always a good sign. Load times are reasonable, and I haven't encountered any major bugs, just the occasional minor glitch that usually fixes itself. The sound design deserves special mention. The ambient audio on this alien world is fantastic. You've got these strange calls of unseen creatures, wind howling through canyons, the crackle of energy anomalies. It creates atmosphere in a way that many games in this genre don't bother with. The music is subtle most of the time, swelling during combat or dramatic moments, but staying out of the way when you're just focused on building. It's the kind of soundtrack that enhances the experience without demanding attention. One thing I really appreciate about StarRupture is how it respects your time and playstyle. If you want to rush through, focusing on combat and quick progression, you can do that. If you want to spend hours meticulously planning the most efficient factory layout possible, the game supports that too. If you're mainly interested in exploration and discovering the mysteries of this planet, there's plenty to find. The game doesn't force you into any particular approach, which gives it a lot of replayability. That said, it's not perfect. The tutorial could be more comprehensive. The game kind of throws you in and expects you to figure things out, which I personally enjoyed, but I know some players prefer more hand-holding. The early game can feel a bit grindy as you're manually gathering resources before you get automation up and running. And while the world is large and varied, there are times when travel can feel tedious before you unlock faster movement options. The story and lore are intriguing, but delivered mostly through environmental storytelling and discoverable logs. If you're someone who needs a strong narrative thread pulling you through the game, you might find it a bit light. But if you're like me and enjoy piecing together the mystery of what happened on this planet through exploration and observation, there's definitely enough here to keep you curious. After spending dozens of hours with StarRupture, I can say it's carved out its own identity in a crowded genre. It's not just another survival crafting game or factory builder. It's a unique blend that takes the best elements from both genres, adds in legitimate combat challenge, and wraps it all in a setting that feels fresh and mysterious. The constant tension between building up your industrial empire and defending it from the planet's hostility creates a really engaging gameplay loop that kept me coming back. If you enjoy games like Satisfactory, Factorio, or even something like Deep Rock Galactic, StarRupture is absolutely worth checking out. It's got that same satisfaction of building complex systems, but with added layers of exploration and survival that keep things dynamic. The cooperative play really elevates it too, turning it into an excellent game for groups who like working together toward common goals. Is it going to revolutionize gaming? Probably not, but it doesn't need to. What it does well. And it's clear the developers have a vision for this game and are passionate about it. It's one of those hidden gems that deserves more attention than it's getting. If the concept interests you at all, I'd say give it a shot. Just be prepared to lose track of time as you optimize one more production line, or venture out to explore just one more region, or defend against just one more cataclysm. Before you know it, hours will have passed, and you'll be planning your next session before you've even finished your current one. And really, isn't that the mark of a great game?